It's really important to realise that formative pruning is not a canopy lift, or it's not just a canopy lift. There's a whole lot of things that we can be fixing at this early age. The images we've got there just showing some included bark on stems and unions that are clearly starting to split already. Just wanted to throw these couple of photos in. This is some of the recent pruning that's been completed by contractors near our office. And as you can see, they've done a great job of uplifting, but on both specimens, they've left the co-dominant unions in the trees. They haven't reduced any of those branches, and they are both competing. They're both still growing, and chances are at some stage they're going to split and come to an untimely end. So the research that we completed in 2005, we wanted to compare formative pruning with major structural pruning. And to do that, we used an average time for formative pruning and multiplied that by hourly rates back in 2005. In 2020, we've gone back to the market. There's now several companies that are actually doing specialist formative pruning. And so we got some prices from those as well. Turns out we're looking at around about $9 to $13 per tree for formative pruning. And so of those, we chose an average of $11. Also, standard hourly rates for two arborists, a truck and a chipper. For sort of council contracting rates, we're looking at around about $180 an hour. For our formative pruning exercise, we had an average time for all data of 2.5 minutes. This translates to approximately $3.70 per tree. If we use the example of the yellow box, we had 7 secateur cuts, 2 handsaw cuts, and 2 pole pruner cuts. Now I've used pole pruner because handsaw or snippers, it doesn't seem to make a lot of difference because as you go higher, it gets more difficult with either. If we were to calculate out how much time it should have taken for all of those cuts, it worked out to 3 minutes 55 seconds, and that would have equated to $5.88. In the real world, it took us 5 minutes and 27 seconds at a cost of $8.17. So you can see that the predicted price of $8.17 isn't far off the formative pruning cost of somewhere between $9 and $13 that's being offered at the moment. We then compared that to removing a major structural limb or a codominant stem approximately 20 years down the track. To do this, we looked at using an inflation rate of approximately 3% per year on the hourly rates, which resulted in $295 an hour. If we were to estimate 2 hours on site to remove a large codominant stem from a tree, we end up with approximately $580 to prune that limb. Now that also doesn't take into account things like traffic management that might be required if this is a street tree and we're working in a council street. If we were to look at formative pruning as a comparison, we should have no cost for the initial prune because that would have been done at planting or in the nursery. Then we should have a first prune at around about year 3, using our average costs, comes out at $4.20. A prune at year 6 comes out at approximately $4.60, and that brings us to a total of $8.80. If we were to even use the per tree rates that we've got for formative pruning of an average of $11, assuming inflation, those 2 pruning events are still only going to cost us $25. I guess the real take-home message here for me is that we've got one major structural prune at $580 to prune that one limb. We can formatively prune 23 trees to ensure that never happens. And that represents a significant saving over time. Just to finish, I wanted to go through some of the benefits of not just tree related of formative pruning. We've got, at an economic level, obviously it is a cost-effective pruning method, and it presents opportunities for substantial savings, particularly for large tree owners such as councils. But also with things like reduced OH&S issues to staff, there's hopefully less claims and less other costs associated for the tree owners.